to read this on this. No, it's this. Sometimes we sabotage our relationships because what we really want is to find ourselves through. Though we are afraid to be alone, sometimes we sabotage our professional successes because our professional success because what we really want is to create art, even if it will make us seem less ambitious. Even if it will make us seem less ambition by society's measures. Sometimes we sabotage our healing journey by psychoanalyzing, psychoanalyzing our feelings, because doing so ensures we avoid actually experiencing them. Sometimes we sabotage our self-talk because if we believed in ourselves, we would feel free to get back out in the world and take risks, and that would leave us vulnerable. In the end, self-sabotage is very often just a malad- mal- maladaptive, maladaptive. Mal- maladaptive, maladaptive coping mechanism. A way we give ourselves what we need without having to actually address what that need is. Because, like any coping mechanism, it is just that, a way to cope. It is not an answer. It's not a solution, and it does not ever truly solve the problem. We are merely numbing our desires and giving ourselves a little taste of temporary, temporary, temporary relief. Self-sabotage comes from irrational fear. Irrational fear. Sometimes our most sabotaging behaviors are really the results of long held, unex- unexamined fears we have about the world and ourselves. Perhaps it is the idea that you are unintelligent, unattractive, or disliked. Perhaps it is the idea of losing a job, taking an elevator, or committing, committing, committing to a relationship. In other cases, it can be more abstract, such as the concept of someone coming to get you violating your boundaries, getting caught, or being wrongly accused. These beliefs becomes attachments over time. For most people, the abstract fear is really a representation of a legit, legit, legitimate, legitimate fear, because it would be too scary to actually do well on the real fear. We project those feelings into issues or circumstances that are less likely to occur if this situ this sit- if the situation has an extremely low likelihood of becoming reality. It it therefore becomes a safe thing to worry about because subconsciously we already know it isn't going to happen. Therefore, we have an avenue to experience our feelings without actually engaging in God in endangering ourselves. For example, if you are someone who is deeply afraid of being a passenger in a car, maybe your real fear is the loss of control or the idea that someone or something else is controlling your life. Perhaps the fear of moving forward, and the moving car is simply a representation of that. If you were aware of the real issue, you could begin working to resolve it, perhaps by identifying the ways you are giving you your power or being too passive. However, if you aren't aware of the real problem, you will continue to spend your time trying to convince yourself to not be triggered and anxious while riding the car, and find that it only gets worse. If you try to fix the problem on the surface, you will always come up against a wall. You always come against a wall. This is because you're trying to rip off a band-aid before you have a strategy to heal the wound. Self-sabotage comes from unconscious negative associations. Self-sabotage is also one of the first signs that your inner narrative is outdated, limiting, or simply incorrect. Your life is defined not only by what you think about it, but also what you think about of yourself. Your self-sabotage is an idea that you have spent your life your self-concept is an idea that you have spent your whole life building. It was created by piecing together inputs and influences from those around, what your parents believed, what your peers thought, what becomes what become self-evident through personal experience, and so on. Your self-image is difficult to adjust because your brain's confirmation bias works to affirm your pre-existing beliefs about yourself. When we self-sabotage, it is often because we have a negative association between achieving the goal we aspire to and being the kind of person who has or does that thing. If your issue is that you want to be financially stable and yet you keep running every effort you make to get there, you have to work to go back to your first concept of money. Did your parents manage their finances more importantly? More importantly, What did they tell you about people had it who had it and people who didn't? Many people who struggle financially will justify their place in life by dis- disavowing disavowing money as a whole. They will say that all rich people are terrible if you grew up with people who told you your entire life that people who have money are this way. Guess what you're going to resist having? Money. Your anxiety around the issue that you're self sabotaging is usually a reflection of your limiting belief. Maybe you associate being healthy with being vulnerable because you had a parent who was perfectly healthy when they suddenly fell ill. Maybe you aren't writing your magnum opus because you don't really want to write. You just want to be seen as successful because that will get you praise, which is typically what people revert to to when they want acceptance but haven't gotten it. Maybe you keep eating the wrong foods because they s- soothe you soothe you, but you haven't stopped to ask what they have to keep soothing you from. Maybe you aren't really pessimist, a pessimist, but don't know how to connect with all the people in your life other than by complaining to them. In order to reconnect, reconnect, reconcile, reconcile this, you have to begin to challenge these pre-existing ideas and then adopt new ones. You have to be able to recognize that not everybody with money is corrupt, corrupt, not by a long shot. Even more importantly, given that there are people who use their money in a selfish ways, it is even more important that good people with great insurance, in, intentions are fearless in pursuit of their acquiring this essential tool to create more time, opportunity, and willness for themselves and others. You have to recognize that being healthy makes you less vulnerable, not more, and that criticism comes with creating anything for the public and isn't a reason to you to not do it. You have to show yourself that there are many different ways to self soothe that are more effective than unhealthy food cho- choices and that there are far better ways to connect with others than through negativity. Once you begin once you begin to really question and observe these pre-existing beliefs, you begin to see how wrapped and illogical they were all along. Not to mention distinctly holding distinctly holding you back from your ultimate potential. Self-sabotage comes from what's unfamiliar. A human begins experiencing a natural resistance to the unknown because it is essentially the ultimate loss of control. This is true even if what unknown is been violent or even beneficial to us. Self sabotage is very often the simple product of unfamiliarity. And it is because anything that is for forgiven, not matter how good, will also be will be uncomfortable until it is also familiar. So I read a lot more than the first time. This is progress, and this is what we're working for.